A wind-scraped hilltop in southeastern Turkey, 9600 BCE. There is nothing around you. No village, no city, no farmland, no pottery. The people alive right now are hunter-gatherers. They follow the herds. They survive. And yet directly in front of you, carved from limestone and raised to the height of a full-grown man, stand two T-shaped pillars, each weighing 20 tons, ringed by stone benches and decorated with bas-relief foxes, scorpions, and vultures, so precise they look like they were made yesterday. You are standing in a temple, the oldest temple on Earth. And here is the part that changes everything. The civilization that supposedly made temples possible, the one with surplus food and organized labor and settled cities, had not been invented yet. What you are looking at should not exist. And it is only the first of 10. Göbekli Tepe, the temple before civilization. German archaeologist Klaus Schmidt began excavating Göbekli Tepe in 1994 after a Kurdish shepherd reported unusual stones jutting from the hillside. The site had been cataloged by the University of Chicago in the 1960s and dismissed as a medieval cemetery. Schmidt spent 20 years correcting that mistake. Radiocarbon dating places the oldest enclosures at 9600 to 8200 BCE, making the site at least 11,600 years old. 6,000 years older than Stonehenge, 7,000 years older than the Great Pyramid. The T-shaped pillars reach up to 5.5 meters. The quarry sits between 100 and 500 meters away. Someone crossed that distance repeatedly with stones weighing between 10 and 20 tons, using tools we have not found and methods we cannot reconstruct. Schmidt estimated that constructing a single enclosure required coordinating at least 500 workers. For a non-agricultural society with no known surplus food storage, that is very nearly impossible to explain. Then there is Pillar 43, the vulture stone. It depicts a headless human figure, a vulture holding a round object on its wing and 3 handbag-shaped symbols along its top register. A 2017 study proposed the panel encodes the date of a catastrophic cosmic impact around 10,950 BCE using recognizable constellation positions. Whether that specific claim holds, the panel is clearly doing something beyond decoration. In around 8000 BCE, the entire complex was deliberately buried under thousands of tons of rubble, not abandoned, not destroyed, carefully and intentionally entombed. The mainstream view holds that mobile hunter-gatherers were capable of greater social coordination than assumed when motivated by shared ritual purpose. The deliberate burial follows a known Neolithic practice of decommissioning sacred spaces. But the organizational problem does not shrink when you revise the sequence. It grows. Feeding 500 workers without agriculture means someone was storing food at a scale we have not found evidence for, or mobilizing labor across hundreds of kilometers on the basis of a belief system sophisticated enough to commission a cathedral. Could the temple be not the product of civilization, but the seed from which civilization grew? Only 5% of the site has been excavated. Whatever answers exist are still underground. 9. Teotihuacan, the city no one built. Picture a city of 125,000 people built on a precise astronomical blueprint, its central pyramid encoding pi to 4 decimal places. When later civilizations arrived and asked who built it, no one could answer. The Aztecs named it themselves, Teotihuacan, the place where men become gods. They assumed the builders must have been divine because no civilization they knew could have produced it. The Pyramid of the Sun is the 3rd largest pyramid on Earth by volume. Its base measures 225 meters on one side, within a single meter of the Great Pyramid of Giza. archaeoastronomer Anthony Aveni confirmed that a 15.5-degree offset encoded throughout the city's entire 36-square-kilometer street grid marks the precise point where the Pleiades set in 150 CE. This was not a city that grew organically. It was designed from the beginning as a unified astronomical instrument. Beneath the Pyramid of the Sun runs a natural lava tube cave extending 100 meters into the rock. The cave had been deliberately modified. Ritual deposits, carved chambers, and mirrors were found inside it. The pyramid was built directly over it, centered on it, with the cave functioning as a sacred axis. In 2015, archaeologist Sergio Gomez discovered large quantities of liquid mercury beneath the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. Mercury does not occur naturally in this region. Someone transported it from far away and poured it into the ground beneath a temple. The city was abandoned around 550 CE, partially burned, with no conquest to explain the collapse. The evidence points toward deliberate destruction from within, selective burning of palace structures as though someone wanted to erase a specific class of people while leaving the monument standing. The founding population's identity has completely dissolved from collective memory. Its base dimensions echo Giza's within a single meter. That is either coincidence or the first thread of something that runs through every structure on this list. 8. Derinkuyu, the city that swallowed itself. In 1963, a man in central Turkey knocked out a wall during home renovations and found a room he did not recognize, then another room, then a tunnel. By the time archaeologists understood what they were looking at, they had found a fully engineered underground metropolis carved 85 meters straight down into the volcanic rock of Cappadocia, capable of housing 20,000 people along with their livestock, food stores, schools, wineries, churches, and dead. The city extends through 18 confirmed levels. The ventilation system consists of more than 15,000 individual air shafts connecting every level to the surface. Modern engineers confirmed that shaft placement was calculated to create airflow through convection. Whoever designed this understood fluid dynamics well enough to implement it invisibly in 3 dimensions in solid rock before the first stone was removed. Circular stone doors weighing up to 500 kilograms sealed individual corridors from the inside, each engineered with a central hole allowing a defender to insert a spear outward while the passage remained sealed. At the 55-meter level, a connecting tunnel links Derinkuyu to a second underground city 9 kilometers away. At least 36 similar cities have been identified in the region. The mainstream explanation points to soft volcanic rock, unusually easy to carve, and successive invasions creating genuine need for underground refuge. Successive populations expanded existing cave networks over many generations, but a ventilation network for 20,000 people across 18 levels is not something you expand by accident over centuries. It requires a unified engineering plan conceived before excavation begins, because the airflow mathematics only work if the full depth is calculated in advance. The deepest levels have not been excavated. Whatever the original purpose was, it was buried along with the builders. 7. Nabta Playa, the calendar before the calendar. 6,000 years before the birth of Christ, the region now known as the Nubian Desert was a seasonal lake ringed by grasslands, inhabited by cattle-herding communities who watched the sky with a precision that would not be equaled in Europe for another 4,000 years. They left behind a stone circle older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, that tracked the summer solstice, aligned to specific stars, and encoded an astronomical calendar so accurate it appears to account for a phenomenon Western science would not formally describe until the modern era. These were nomadic cattle herders in what is now the middle of nothing. Anthropologist Fred Wendorf discovered it by accident in 1973. A landmark 2001 paper in Nature confirmed a complex of standing stones and burial mounds arranged with demonstrable astronomical precision, dated to between 6000 and 4500 BCE. Astrophysicist J. McKim Malville confirmed that two pairs of upright slabs align to the summer solstice sunrise. Astrophysicist Thomas Brophy went further, proposing that 6 inner circle stones correspond to the belt and shoulder stars of Orion around 4500 BCE, with stone spacing proportional to actual stellar distances. Then Brophy's analysis produced something harder to dismiss. The northern alignments of the same stones appear to encode stellar positions from approximately 16,500 BCE, predating the construction of the circle itself by 12,000 years. In around 3500 BCE, the site was abandoned, precisely coinciding with the desiccation of the Sahara. The people who built it moved northeast toward the Nile. If they carried an astronomical tradition into Egypt when the desert closed behind them, then the precision of Giza's alignments built 2,000 years later looks less like sudden genius and more like the continuation of a very old science. Could these stones be a record of observations made elsewhere, copied here so the knowledge would not be lost? 6. Yonaguni, the pyramid under the Pacific. In 1986, a Japanese diver searching for hammerhead sharks off Yonaguni Island hit something wrong with his flashlight. Flat-topped terraces, right-angle corners, parallel walls, a staircase. 25 meters below the Pacific, carved from a single continuous mass of sandstone, sat a structure roughly the size of the Titanic that looked unmistakably like something built. Marine geologist Masaki Kimura spent more than 15 years diving the monument and identified at least 10 distinct architectural features, including terraces, a wide road, an arch, 2 towers, and a star-shaped platform. Robert Schoch of Boston University argued the structure is primarily natural in origin, but acknowledged some features showed evidence of human modification of a naturally formed base. A government geologist from Tokyo University stated publicly that the overall arrangement was too regular to be natural. Here's the problem both positions must face. Sea level data confirms the Yonaguni Shelf was last above water between 10,000 and 12,000 BCE. If anyone shaped it, that work was done before the ocean swallowed it, placing the builders at a minimum of 12,000 years ago, predating every named civilization on Earth. Natural sandstone fracturing can produce right angles. It does not produce staircases. It does not produce a wide, flat road running parallel to a terrace. It does not produce a triangular depression of consistent depth at the base of a flat-topped platform. No full peer-reviewed excavation has been funded in 35 years. The question sits on the bottom of the Pacific, waiting. 5. Stonehenge, the 200-mile problem. You know Stonehenge, but here is what the photographs do not tell you. The large sarsen stones of the outer ring came from 25 miles away. Difficult, but tractable. The blue stones are the problem. 82 of them, weighing up to 4 tons each, were quarried from the Preseli Hills in southwestern Wales, 200 miles away, across 2 mountain ranges and the Bristol Channel. Someone decided those specific stones were the only ones on Earth that would serve and moved them 200 miles to a plain in Wiltshire. A 2019 excavation led by Mike Parker Pearson pinpointed the precise quarry sites and made an unexpected discovery. The bluestones appear to have been erected first at a site in Wales before being deliberately dismantled and moved. They were not moved once, they were moved twice. A 2020 isotope analysis eliminated glacial transport as an explanation for the majority of the stones. Analysis of the arrangement within Stonehenge shows the bluestones were repositioned multiple times over 500 years, retaining active ritual significance across many generations. Parker Pearson's mainstream interpretation holds the stones carried the spiritual power of the Welsh mountains as a deliberate act of cultural unification. But the ritual motivation deepens the engineering problem rather than resolving it. The proposed coastal transport route has never been experimentally completed, particularly the Bristol Channel crossing. Archaeoacoustic researcher Rupert Till demonstrated in 2011 that Stonehenge's layout creates specific standing waves and reverberation patterns that may have been intentional design features rather than incidental results. The spotted dolerite rings like a bell when struck. Were the bluestones chosen for how they sing? 4,000 years later, the stones are not finished with their questions.
4. Saxe Huaman, the fortress that should not stand. At 3,700 meters above sea level, someone moved stones the size of houses, not smooth, manageable blocks, irregular polygonal masses weighing up to 200 tons, cut into shapes with anywhere from 12 to 44 distinct faces, then fitted against one another so precisely that the joint between them is a continuous, unbroken line. No mortar holds them, no settling has opened them. 5 centuries after the Spanish arrived and quarried those same stones to build their colonial city below, the walls of Saxe Huaman remain standing. The Spanish city has been rebuilt multiple times after earthquakes. The ancient walls above have not moved. Jean-Pierre Pratzen of UC Berkeley documented that the nearest quarry is 35 kilometers away, across a route including a river crossing and a 600-meter altitude gain. Pre-Columbian Peru had no wheeled vehicles, no iron tools, and no draft animals capable of moving multi-ton loads. Experimental trials moved a 10-ton stone using 100 workers, wooden sledges, and rope. Scaling to 200 tons would require 2,000 workers and a prepared road surface that has never been found along the transport route. Pratzen himself concluded the polygonal fitting technique at the main walls, those 44-face stones joined to sub-millimeter tolerances, remained unexplained by any available toolset. Multiple Spanish chroniclers independently recorded that the Inca did not claim to have built the oldest sections, attributing them to a people associated with the creator deity Viracocha. The identical polygonal fitting technique appears at Egypt's Valley Temple, separated from Saxe Huaman by an ocean and more than 1,000 years. The technique is so specific, so technically demanding, and so structurally unnecessary that its independent invention on opposite sides of the world strains the concept of coincidence. What if it was not invented twice?
And the third is Easter Island, the road to nowhere and back. The most isolated inhabited place on Earth. 3,500 kilometers of open Pacific to the nearest continent. On this speck of volcanic rock, a population never exceeding 15,000 quarried 900 massive statues from a single crater, transported them across the island, and erected them on precisely engineered platforms. Then, in a period strikingly short in the archaeological record, they knocked every single one down. Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen arrived in 1722 and found them already toppled. In 2019, excavation confirmed something photographs had never shown. The statues have bodies extending 6 to 8 meters below ground, and those buried portions are covered in carved petroglyphs, messages inscribed on parts never meant to be seen once the statues were standing. In 2012, Carl Lipo and Terry Hunt demonstrated that statues could be walked upright using coordinated rope teams' air rocking motion, solving the transport mystery and matching the wear patterns at statue bases. The stonework at certain platforms, particularly at Venupo, uses precisely fitted polygonal construction nearly identical to Inca techniques, including the same angled interfaces that create a self-locking joint. In 2020, a current biology study found clear genetic evidence of pre-European contact between Easter Island Polynesians and South Americans dated to 1150 to 1230 CE. Contact Thor Heyerdahl proposed in 1952 and was dismissed for suggesting, confirmed 70 years later by DNA. The Venutu stonework is no longer a coincidence. It is evidence of exactly the contact the genetics confirm. For whom were those petroglyphs buried beneath the statues left? The island's inhabitants appear to have been encoding information for an audience they did not expect to be their own descendants. Second on the list is Great Zimbabwe,
Africa's erased empire. When European explorers first reached Great Zimbabwe in the 1870s, so many of them committed in print to the position that Africans could not have built it, that one proposed it was the biblical city of Ophir, another attributed it to Phoenician traders, and a German explorer called it the Lost Palace of the Queen of Sheba. It took nearly a century of archaeology to establish what should have been obvious. The largest stone structure in sub-Saharan Africa was built by Shona-speaking African people, without mortar, without metal tools. Gertrude Caton Thompson proved this conclusively in 1929. The question is no longer who built it. The question is where the knowledge came from and where it went. The great enclosure walls reach 11 meters in height, 5 meters thick at the base, 250 meters in total length, requiring an estimated 15,000 tons of dry stacked granite. The construction uses a refined coursing technique in which blocks are graded by size from base to top, creating an inward-leaning batter that distributes weight and resists lateral pressure. This requires engineering knowledge, not merely accumulated labor. Artifacts from the ruins confirm long-distance commerce: Chinese celadon pottery, Persian faience, Indian ocean glass beads. At its peak, the city housed 18,000 people, making it one of the largest cities in the 14th century world. Within the great enclosure stands a conical tower 9 meters tall and completely solid. Not a storage structure, not a defensive feature, not a functional object of any kind that analysis has identified. It stands there, purpose unknown. And the near-complete absence of this empire from standard history curricula, despite its being the administrative center of a state trading with China and Persia, is not an archaeological problem. It is an editorial one, a residue of colonial-era denial that Caton Thompson refuted in 1929, but that persists in popular perception. If an empire of that scale can be overlooked, what else have we been taught not to see?
And we have the Great Pyramid of Giza at the top of the list, the number nobody can explain. Here is a number, 1,440. That is how many years the Great Pyramid stood as the tallest structure built by human hands, from 2560 BCE until the Lincoln Cathedral spire in 1311 CE. The height is extraordinary, but the height is not the mystery. The mystery is what is encoded in the shape itself. Flinders Petrie survey found the 4 base sides average 230.3 meters, with a maximum deviation of 4.4 centimeters across a base covering 5.3 hectares. The base is level to within 2.1 centimeters. Alignment to true north achieves 3/60ths of a degree, a precision not matched by any other ancient structure and not meaningfully exceeded by the Paris Observatory, built in 1671 with the explicit purpose of achieving meridian accuracy. The ratio of the pyramid's perimeter to twice its height yields pi to 4 decimal places. The ratio of its height to half its base length equals the golden ratio phi to 3 decimal places. Both relationships appear simultaneously in a single structure in 2560 BCE. The pyramid's height corresponds to the polar radius of the Earth to within 0.2%. In 2017, muon tomography published in Nature detected a previously unknown void above the Grand Gallery, roughly the same size as the Grand Gallery itself. No one has entered it. No one has explained it. The mainstream view holds the pyramid was built as a tomb for Pharaoh Khufu, the mathematical relationships arising as byproducts of slope measurement using the secant. But the second explanation accounts for pi as a byproduct. It does not explain why phi and pi appear simultaneously, since no secant-based method produces both at once. And the absence of any burial evidence, no body, no royal inscriptions, no burial equipment, in the one structure supposedly built as the grandest tomb in a civilization that expended extraordinary effort to identify its royal dead, is not an anomaly that robbery or incompletion resolves cleanly. It is a mystery the tomb theory has circled for 2 centuries without dissolving. A structure encoding pi, phi, and the Earth's polar radius, aligned to true north with sub-arc-minute accuracy, containing a room-sized hidden void. This is either the most extraordinary accumulation of coincidences in architectural history, or it is a message encoded in 2.5 million stones at a scale designed to outlast everything.
10 structures, 4 continents, an ocean floor, 12,000 years from the oldest temple ever found to the hidden chamber inside the most famous monument in the world. The mainstream explanations are not fabrications. Protson's quarry experiments are real. Parker Pearson's bluestone research is real. The Giza workforce documentation is real. Dismissing that work is not skepticism. It is the same intellectual laziness that dismissed Göbekli Tepe as a medieval cemetery for 30 years. But something runs beneath all 10 structures that no individual mainstream explanation covers. Polygonal stone fitting in Peru and Egypt, pi and phi encoded simultaneously in pyramids on 2 continents, astronomical alignments built by cultures separated by oceans and thousands of years, accounting for precession and stellar drift, underground ventilation mathematics implemented before formal fluid dynamics existed. The orthodox explanations work for each structure individually. They become much harder to sustain when you stand back far enough to see all 10 at once. The honest position is this: we do not fully know. The timeline of human capability may extend further back than our curricula acknowledge. There may have been bodies of knowledge, networks of transmission, or civilizations whose names we have not yet recovered that shaped what we call the ancient world. Some of what we call primitive achievement may have been inherited, not invented from nothing. 12,000 years ago, someone stood on a wind-scraped hilltop in southeastern Turkey and built a temple that should not have existed. They cut the stone, they raised the pillars, they carved the animals with a precision that still unsettles the researchers who study them, and then they buried the whole thing carefully, deliberately, and walked away into a history we are only beginning to recover. We have been digging it back up ever since. The question Göbekli Tepe never answers is the one that drives all 10 of these structures. What did they know that they needed to hide?